Hello everybody, good evening, I'm Cosmic Claire and welcome to another one of my evening video blogs. Well, the last couple of days I've been talking about political interface with spirituality, I suppose is how I would think of it anyway, and kind of wanted to take it a little bit further but in a different direction tonight because it's been really cold here in Headingley, and I think it is pretty much all over in England and doubtless in Scotland and probably in Wales and both Northern and the Republic of Ireland and everywhere, where it's probably a bit warmer in the west, but anyway, it's jolly cold, and it really affects the way people feel. I think it certainly gets into my bones, and it gives me kind of increases my feeling of mortality, and I'm sure it does to everybody, but kind of it's funny how it pulls people together. And one of the things that occurs to me is that in this very difficult political climate in which we live, in which physical power and economic power is what makes things happen, or at least ostensibly, if just us kind of weak mortals, this weak mortal flesh with all the pains that it is heir to and all that, if that was all we had against the power of political, financial corporations, the New World Order, the Bilderbergs, you name it, it would kind of be a lost battle from the start. But I think, like a lot of other people, I believe that there are other aspects of reality which go well beyond what we see, hear, feel and touch in the three-dimensional world of exterior material reality. And I'm not just thinking about the immense amount of valuable work that's been done over the last 20 or 30 years into out-of-body near-death experiences, which, if you're willing to have an open mind, produce some absolutely fantastic evidence. Things come to mind, like the person who saw a child's plimsoll on a parapet outside the window when they were having an out-of-body experience, when they nearly died, and when they told the nurse that there was a child's plimsoll out on the parapet outside, and they went and had a look, they found there was indeed a child's child's plimsoll on the parapet in a place where somebody who was recovering from a near-death experience would not be looking. And all these kinds of things. People have seen things written on the top of lampshades in operating rooms, and had experiences when their brain was supposed to be completely inactive, and so on and so forth. And I simply don't buy this kind of like, oh, it's some kind of brain mechanism thing going on. Well, I'm sure brain mechanisms are a part of it, but I'm sure there's a lot more to it than some kind of knee-jerk thing that happens. Oh, look, the brain's having an out-of-body death experience, near-death experience, because it's suffering from hypoxia, so we're just going to have this hallucination, which makes the person think that they're somewhere else, because this has really good survival value, doesn't it? Yes, really important evolutionary step for people to have near-death experiences. I don't think so. But I've had some interesting experiences myself. Not near-death experiences, fortunately. I haven't got that close. But it has occurred to me that some of the dream experiences, which I quite frequently have, are a little bit similar to some of those experiences. I'm also thinking about the sorts of things that people experience when they take ayahuasca in ritual circumstances with shamans. And one of the things they described, Graham Hancock's a big one on this, and one of the things they describe is a feeling of presence. There's other beings there. It's more than just a kind of visual hallucination. There is a feeling of another presence, another consciousness, another intentional mind. And, well, of course, people who don't want to engage with this will always say, oh, well, it's just imagination. And there's no way of proving whether it is or not. However, when you've had this kind of experience, it is very difficult to shake off the feeling that there was some other mind, some other intentional consciousness. And I have had a number of these experiences in hypnagogic and hypnopompic states. Now I always get confused which one is which. I think hypnagogic is the waking up and hypnopompic is the falling asleep, but I'm sure someone can correct me on that if I'm wrong. I've seen different, none of the dictionaries agree on that. Basically, in which I've had very strong feelings that there is another consciousness, another being, another person paying attention to me, and these are kind of experienced like well, almost like ghosts. And now you're all going to kind of reach for the phone and kind of try and get me sectioned or something for this. I mean, this is kind of a bit out there, isn't it? But it all happens on the edge of sleep, and it could just be dreams, extremely unusual dreams. And it's this kind of thing which reinforces my belief that there is a dimension of consciousness which is way beyond the material limitations that our culture and our society want people to believe in. And it seems to me that if the people who rather enjoy having power and a large degree of control in this material world want to keep it that way and don't want to have it become a more kind of egalitarian world, then they would probably want to do everything they can to stop people having experiences or contacts or belief with this other world, because it's quite extraordinary the amount of resistance that certain belief systems have against the notion of otherworldly dimensions of consciousness, which is actually what the human race has believed in for certainly thousands of years, and almost certainly tens of thousands years more into the deep prehistoric past, which is way beyond anything that we have historical records for. But certainly if you look at the ancient cave paintings of a full precessional cycle ago and more, they seem to have a kind of animistic quality to them, where the whole reality of the painters is coming alive. And this is completely different from the world we're in now, in which science wants us to believe that everything is dead. Science wants us to believe that even our own minds are only imaginary illusions, which is kind of bizarre, really, because our minds are the only things we have that prove the existence of anything at all. And I find it quite disturbing the way that the dominant paradigm reality tries to turn everything into a machine, close down consciousness, and deny that there is any ethical or spiritual value, while the intuitive feeling within the soul of anybody who really cares to think about it must be entirely the opposite. And I'm brought to mind here of the it's a constantly recurring thing I come back to, the symbol of focusing. Like a microscope or a telescope, the more we look at something through one of these things, the bigger it gets and the more it fills our vision. And the same way in a metaphysical world, in the metaphysical world, if we think about spirituality and value, then those are things which fill our worlds and excuse me, and what we do and what we create flows out of those things that fill our consciousness. Whereas on the other side, the people who believe in nothing, or at least propagate the belief in nothing but material existence, they manage to diminish consciousness and put people further away from any feeling of spiritual union with the universe. So, well, kind of by your fruits are ye known. You kind of create a self-fulfilling prophecy about this, and well, it's no prizes for guessing which one I believe in, but the illusory consciousness level that still has kind of a grip on the mental paradigm of our culture is not one that actually serves people. It's not one which serves humanity. It serves a very small group of people, and even those it doesn't actually serve, because it only helps them perpetuate their spiritual isolation and their kind of autistic, childish little world where their own solipsistic satisfactions are all they think about, and keeping their clique in power and not worrying about the not being concerned about the pain and the suffering that they cause to other people who could have better lives if they were not manipulated and exploited. So I think we get a bigger view of ourselves, and I think it's kind of empowering to have the kind of some sort of experience of other worlds, because you realise that the limitations of this one are not all that we are bound by. But we have to have our minds open to these other possibilities. We have to kind of open a window to let them in, and have a slightly kind of inquisitive mind about these things. because it's that focus thing. If you focus away from them, if you look away from these things and deny them, they're very subtle. They're not going to come hammering on your door demanding entrance if you don't show an interest in them. But if you don't, it's like living in a black and white world. Whereas the world of consciousness is a world of synchronicity and meaning and connection amongst all things. So it's a reality worldview which is so much bigger than the kind of mechanistic machine world that the people who want to run this world at the present time think it should be. But it's not. It is infinite consciousness, and we are part of that. So we just need to remember that and feel inside what you feel inside. Find some stillness and don't let the pressure take you away from the awareness of your heart and your feeling and your consciousness inside you, because that's the true reality. And if you can keep hold of that, then it keeps it puts a different perspective on everything else that happens, and makes it have a lot more sense. Okay, well, I'll wind up there, folks. Definitely taking a different angle from some of the political stuff I've done lately, but it all puts together, it all adds up, it all links up into one universal consciousness with just an infinite number of different angles and diverse points of view, which is what it's all about. So I hope you keep warm and stay in your heart consciousness, and I'll bid you good night and be back for another evening tomorrow probably. So thank you very much. In Lakesh. Spirituality, I suppose, is how I would think of it anyway, and kind of wanted to take it a little bit further but in a different direction tonight, because it's been really cold here in Headingley, and I think it is pretty much all over in England and doubtless in Scotland and probably in Wales and both Northern and the Republic of Ireland and everywhere, where it's probably a bit warmer in the west. But anyway, it's jolly cold, and it really affects the way people feel, I think. It certainly gets into my bones, and it gives me kind of increases my feeling of mortality, and I'm sure it does to everybody, but kind of physical power and economic power is what makes things happen, or at least ostensibly. If just us kind of weak mortals, this weak mortal flesh with all the pains that it is heir to and all that, if that was all we had, it's funny how it pulls people together. And one of the things that occurs to me is that in this very difficult political climate in which we live, in which hello everybody, good evening, I'm Cosmic Claire, and welcome to another one of my evening video blogs. Well, the last couple of days I've been talking about kind of political interface with